It began with what looked like a miracle bond between a mother and daughter. Claudine Dee Dee Blanchard and her daughter Gypsy Rose were beloved in their community. Dee Dee was a devoted single mother, raising her fragile, wheelchair-bound daughter who suffered from an endless list of illnesses: leukemia, muscular dystrophy, epilepsy, asthma, vision impairment, developmental delays, even the mental capacity of a 7-year-old. At least, that's what everyone believed. They were constantly featured in news stories, symbols of perseverance and unconditional love. They received donations, free trips, and even a new home built for them by Habitat for Humanity. But behind the heartwarming image lay something truly dark. The truth was far more twisted and far more horrifying. Gypsy Rose wasn't sick. Not at all. She could walk. She didn't need a feeding tube. She didn't have leukemia or muscular dystrophy. The entire life she was living was a carefully manufactured illusion created by her own mother. Dee Dee suffered from Munchausen Syndrome by Proxy, a rare psychological disorder where a caregiver makes up or causes illness in someone else, usually their child, for attention, sympathy, and control. Gypsy's entire childhood was a lie, and after years of living under her mother's control, being fed medications she didn't need, going through painful treatments, and being psychologically and physically abused, Gypsy had enough. In 2015, she and her secret online boyfriend murdered Dee Dee, and the world was left stunned by the monstrous truth hidden beneath a fairy tale facade. Dee Dee Blanchard was born in Louisiana in 1967 and was known by many as someone with manipulative tendencies from a young age. She often exaggerated illness in those around her and seemed to enjoy being the one people relied on. When she gave birth to Gypsy Rose in July 1991, the lies began almost immediately. Dee Dee claimed Gypsy had sleep apnea as a baby. Soon the list of ailments exploded. She told doctors Gypsy had leukemia, muscular dystrophy, epilepsy, asthma, severe allergies, vision and hearing problems, and mental delays. She shaved Gypsy's head so people would believe she was undergoing chemotherapy. She used a wheelchair for her, even though Gypsy could walk. Dee Dee dragged Gypsy from one doctor to another, always prepared with a convincing story and falsified medical histories. She claimed that Katrina had destroyed Gypsy's medical records when they fled Louisiana. She used that disaster as an excuse to start over in Springfield, Missouri, where they quickly became local celebrities. Freebies poured in: money, trips, concerts, the specially built home. And behind the walls of that pink house, Dee Dee isolated Gypsy from the world. She pulled her out of school, forged birth certificates to make her seem younger, controlled her diet, her medication, and her interactions. If Gypsy ever questioned anything, Dee Dee would hit her or deny her food. Gypsy had no say in her own life. She was taught that she was weak, sick, and incapable. The control was absolute. But as Gypsy grew older, the cracks in Dee Dee's twisted system began to show. Gypsy realized she could walk. She wondered why she couldn't go to school or have friends. Secretly, she got online and created a Facebook account. And there, in a dark corner of the internet, she met Nicholas Gojon, a man who would become her boyfriend, her escape plan, and ultimately, her mother's killer. Nicholas Gojon was from Wisconsin, with a troubled past and a list of mental health issues including autism and dissociative identity disorder. He had violent sexual fantasies, and he shared them with Gypsy. But to her, he represented freedom. For over 2 years, they communicated secretly. Their online relationship evolved into role-playing, confessions, and disturbing fantasies. Eventually, Gypsy confided everything about her mother's abuse, and she started planning a way out, a permanent one. Gypsy suggested it. Nicholas should kill Dee Dee so they could be together. In June 2015, Nicholas boarded a Greyhound bus to Springfield. The plan was horrifyingly simple. Gypsy would let him into the house while Dee Dee was asleep. She would hide in the bathroom and cover her ears. He would do the rest. That night, Nicholas entered the house quietly. Dee Dee lay asleep in her bed. Gypsy waited in the bathroom, trembling. Then, with a knife they had purchased together at Walmart, Nicholas stabbed Dee Dee 17 times. Her screams echoed through the house, but Gypsy didn't stop him. Dee Dee died in a pool of blood. And with her death, Gypsy believed she had finally been set free. The couple stayed in the house for a while after the murder, had sex, stole some cash, and then fled back to Wisconsin. Gypsy believed they'd gotten away with it. But soon, she made a critical mistake. Using a shared Facebook account, Gypsy posted a bizarre and incriminating status. That is dead. A twisted way to celebrate freedom. But it raised alarm bells. Friends called the police. When officers arrived at the house, they discovered Dee Dee's decomposing body, but Gypsy was gone. A nationwide search began. Just 2 days later, Gypsy and Nicholas were found in Wisconsin. And what shocked the world wasn't just the arrest, but the fact that Gypsy was walking perfectly, publicly. The girl who was once believed to be terminally ill was now walking unassisted, talking normally, and eating without a feeding tube. The illusion shattered. The truth emerged in full. Dee Dee had fabricated Gypsy's entire medical history. She had manipulated doctors, charities, neighbors, and even her own daughter. Gypsy had been the victim of long-term abuse, medical, emotional, and physical. She'd been forced to take medications that rotted her teeth, undergo surgeries she didn't need, and live as a prisoner in her own home. Psychologists confirmed that Gypsy was a victim of Munchausen by proxy and had the mental and emotional development of a teenager, despite being over 20 years old. The court faced a dilemma. Should she be punished as a killer, or seen as a victim who was finally pushed to her breaking point? In 2016, Gypsy accepted a plea deal. She pled guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Nicholas Gojon went to trial in 2018, where he was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He had no remorse and claimed he killed Dee Dee out of love. In prison, Gypsy began to heal. She stopped taking medications, grew out her hair, and finally began living as her true self. She earned her GED, got engaged, and even participated in documentaries. The most notable was HBO's Mommy, Dead, and Dearest, which exposed the horrifying abuse she suffered. In her words, prison gave her more freedom than her own mother ever had. In December 2023, after serving 8.5 years, Gypsy Rose Blanchard was granted parole and released in early 2024. She walked out of prison a free woman, married, changed, and determined to rebuild her life. Her story continues to divide public opinion. Some believe she was a victim driven to extremes. Others believe murder is never justified. But no one can deny the sheer horror of the life she endured and the psychological scars that remain. The pink house in Springfield still stands, now abandoned and vandalized. It serves as a haunting reminder of how appearances can deceive and how monsters can wear the mask of a loving mother. The Gypsy Rose case forced the world to confront uncomfortable truths about child abuse, about mental illness, about failed systems that ignored warning signs, and about how sometimes escape comes at the highest possible cost. So what do you think? Was Gypsy Rose a victim or a murderer, or both? Could this tragedy have been prevented? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you found this story shocking and thought-provoking, don't forget to like the video, share it with others, and subscribe to our channel for more real-life crime stories that reveal the darkest corners of the human mind. We uncover the truth, no matter how chilling it is. Thanks for watching.